friends, welcome back to my DIY channel. I'm Hannah. Today I'm going to take you through this awesome beginner level project of a board and batten. Now this is a very simple project, but you can really amp it up by just adding this trim on top. It's not as hard as it looks. I did this project all by myself and I want to take you through all the tips and tricks so that you can also do it by yourself too. We're going to figure out how to do your measurements, how to do all the cuts and all those finishing touches to really make it look professional. You might have a hallway like this in your home that's dark, dingy, no windows, but that doesn't mean that it can't have a lot of character. In designing your board and batten wall is to actually figure out how tall you want it to be and what the spacing should be.
Measure the height from the top of the baseboard to the ceiling. I personally like taller battens as it makes the room feel taller. For this style, a good rule of thumb is that the batten should be in the range of 2/3 of the height of the wall. Tape it and adjust it. If you're going to add artwork or lighting, that may mean you want to lower it a bit. Oh, and this little nifty laser level was so key for taping up the design. Now to figure out the spacing between your boards, you need to measure the length of the hallway and also measure the width of your boards. Most of the time, boards are half an inch skinnier than the size of the board. So a 4-inch board usually means that it measures 3.5 inches wide. Once you have your measurements, use this website to calculate the width between the battens. It is so much easier than trying to do the math yourself. And if you're a visual person, it even gives you the diagram. I'll link this below.
So I really love taping things out. I find that it helps a lot visually. And after I tape this out, I could see whether this is the right height or not.
My walls are 95 inches tall and the pattern goes up to 63 inches. And the spacing between each board is 18 inches.
Because I have to cut so many pieces at the same length, I'm going to set up a stop block. A stop block is essentially something you use to stop where your board is going to go so that every board pushes up against it and adjust the length of the saw blade to that.
It takes just an extra few minutes to set up your stop block, but once you have it, you can butt every single piece of wood against this and you don't need to measure them. Make sure you clamp down whatever you're using. In this case, I was using a case of sparkling water. And you'll see how fast I was able to cut 3 pieces of wood without having to measure them over and over again. I always like to double check things and triple check things, so I brought my battens inside just to make sure they were the exact right height that I wanted them to be. You'll see this is a pattern for me.
Do you see how the trim comes out further than my baseboards here, right? I'm not gonna just stick this on like this. We're gonna do a beveled cut and that's gonna give us that perfect professional finish.
If your trim is thicker than your baseboards, you have 3 options. First, you can nail it in exactly how it is. The second is that you can take all your baseboards off and then add a thicker baseboard. The third is to split the difference with a bevel cut. I used a 40-degree bevel cut and I think this is a good solution if you don't want to replace all your baseboards but still want a nice finish.
Okay, so this is where you adjust the beveled function on your saw.
Use the laser level when you're doing a bevel cut. Oh hey, we got so busy talking about our battens that we forgot that we have to cut the straight boards too that go across the top. Peel off your tape and line up the battens. If you cut a spacer to the width between your battens, it's a little bit faster. You still need a level, but this way you place the spacer in between and then you can nail on the boards. To attach my boards to the wall, I used a Ryobi nail gun. I used 1 3/4 inch nails and I didn't nail into the studs. I just crisscrossed them. Later on you'll see we'll caulk it and that will add as another mechanism to really adhere the boards to the wall. In some cases when there's an outlet you can move your design 1/2 inch or 1 inch and it's not a big difference, but in this case this vent was 24 inches so I had to work with it. So I cut a small piece and beveled both ends of it so it fit in there perfectly.
So I've got the piece at the bottom. I need to add the piece in the middle, and I added the trim on top. So now it's going to be a lot easier to measure this distance because I have an exact measurement to go off of.
There is truly nothing as satisfying as getting that perfect cut. Because this is a small odd wall beside a door, I'm not using my spacer, but I'm using a level to make sure the board is still going to go straight when I nail it in. Okay, already you can see that it's starting to come together, right? Just with a few boards. Here's another obstacle you might encounter. It's an outlet. I need to place this board on top, but I still want to have access to the outlet.
So we're gonna start extending the outlet. I have my helper here. He's really excited to help. We made sure that the power is off.
Remove the faceplate with a screwdriver. Loosen the screws, but don't remove the entire fixture. You can just slide the outlet extender right behind.
Okay, so Mikhail and I got the extender on, so it's right here. You kind of have to like pull this forward and slide it on. And now we just need to tighten it only to the depth of this, because I need to cut a hole out, but essentially I'm gonna cut the hole out and then it will sit on top. We want to cut a hole not as big as the plate, it has to be smaller than the plate, but for reference what you can do is like kind of draw the size of the plate and then make it smaller when you actually go to cut it. And we're gonna have to do this with a jigsaw, so probably actually I will cut it like, hopefully this is big enough, and if it's not, then we'll come back and we'll try and cut it again. I think that would be correct.
Sorry guys, my battery died after this, but after you cut the outlet out with a jigsaw, you place your board and then you just put the faceplate back on top and screw it together. You don't need to cut your pieces all at once. In some sections, it's easier to cut as you're doing the project. So for instance, this small wall, I measured and marked this piece, then I cut it, and then once I had the exact measurement, then I nailed it on. I really love this cordless brad nailer. I think it's the easiest tool to use when you're doing an accent wall.
Now that we've gotten the board and batten all done, I'm gonna be adding something really special to this. So I'm gonna be adding this decorative trim on top, and you can see just by putting this on top of the board, how much character does that add?
I know a lot of you think I might be perfect, but I make mistakes too. In this case, I cut this piece of trim too short. Not a big deal. I just went and cut a new piece. I dry fit this piece, and since I'm happy with it, I went ahead with my pin nailer and nailed it on. I really love a pin nailer for small, fine, or decorative trim. The nails are a lot smaller, so they don't split the wood. Also, you don't even need to cover them up with wood filler since the holes are so tiny. The paint will just go into the hole and fill them up. Just pause. Look at that corner. Isn't it so beautiful? It adds so much detailing. Here's another beautiful corner cut to perfection. My best recommendation for these is to set your bevel cut to 45 degrees and then visualize which way the saw should go. We're in the final stretch, we're almost to painting. So you want to caulk anywhere where the wood trim meets the wall. This is just going to ensure that if there's any gaps, they'll just get closed right up, and it gives you that really great professional finish. So I just go in with my caulking gun and then I wipe off any excess with a baby wipe. And make sure you use a paintable caulk. If there's a large gap to fill between a wall and a board, don't worry, you can caulk this as well. It might take a few passovers, but you can definitely fill this up. Any places where the wood trim meets each other, you want to use drywall filler or wood filler, as well as fill in all the holes where your nails were. Now, it's okay to be a little bit generous, but don't go overboard, otherwise you will spend ages sanding. Once it's hardened and dry, go ahead with P220 grit sandpaper and just smooth it all out. You'll see that this will actually become a really nice finish. Just make sure to wear a mask and goggles, as there can be a lot of dust flying around from this.
Okay, are we ready to see the color? Oh my gosh, I haven't opened this yet, so. Anticipation. Oh wow, it is beautiful. Let's do this, it's so beautiful.
This is Pewter Green by Sherwin-Williams, and it's just such a beautiful, rich green color. I am literally obsessed with this because look how beautiful it looks in the day and at night. Remember that little outlet we cut out? I also want to paint it so it doesn't stand out so much. So I'm just using bin primer to prime it, and then I'll use the same paint on top. Same for the vent. I also painted this because these are those things that are really gonna give you that finishing touch. I primed this and painted it as well. And here's the final result. Isn't it so beautiful? This is where you can see that your hard work really pays off. And the color is perfectly moody for this hallway. A lot of people overlook a hallway, but it can be a great focal point, especially if you're like me and you're in a smaller home. So that's it. It's not that hard to create this beautiful accent wall in your home. I'm sure you could do it on your own. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe and like this video. I'll see you next time for more budget-friendly DIYs.